Hello everyone. So in this session, we'll continue the discussion of Geography Optional Paper 2. We already have discussed the Paper 1 in two parts. So in this session, we'll discuss the Geography Optional Paper 2 that has recently been concluded. Before looking up the questions, there are few things that you all need to understand. As far as Geography Optional Paper 2 is concerned, this year also the same trend which has been followed by UPSC in last 4-5 years has been continued. The highest proportion has been given to contemporary issues chapter, which is a chapter number 10. So from the contemporary issues, 65 marks question has been asked, highest. After the contemporary issues, 3-4 chapters that were very much important from the marks proportion. One was agriculture. Other than the agriculture, resources. Other than the resources, of course, the first chapter, that is physical setting. This year, lots of question has been asked from a chapter that is political aspect. So these 5 chapters, in a way, these 5 chapters is comprise almost 70% proportion of the paper. So 70% of the paper has been asked from these 5 chapters. But it doesn't mean that the other chapters are not important. Specifically, if you will look out the question number 5, the compulsory question. So in question number 5, compulsory question, there was a question related to the RDP, Regional Development and Planning. There was a question related to the trade, transport, communication, also the question from the cultural setting. So some of the topics, some of the chapters from where less number of questions has been asked, but the question has been asked in chapter number 5, question number 5, so that क्वेश्चन नंबर 5 आपका कंपलसरी है, तो अगर आप वहां पे मिस करेंगे so definitely it is going to affect the your total score in geography optional paper 2. So the point is same like in case of paper 1, that you need to prepare all the chapters, and in addition to that you need to focus more on the contemporary issues topic, because if you will look out the topics of contemporary issues, you will find the contemporary issues will have the topics related to almost all the chapters that you are supposed to study in paper 2. So it will have some of the questions that are very much part of the physical setting. Some of the topics are very much associated with the resources, agriculture, industry, population, food security. So it will have topics from almost all the chapters. So you need to focus more on those topics. Even the topics like epidemics. So it has asked the question last year. It has not asked the question, but this year the impact of the COVID in specifically in some of the slum area has been asked. So you need to focus more on the contemporary issues, and you need to understand the difference between the contemporary issues and the current affairs. So contemporary issues is not the current affairs. In contemporary issues, your approach should be the same that you are supposed to follow in the remaining chapters of paper 2. The same regional approach, the same descriptive approach will be required, will be expected in case of contemporary issues also. So these are some of the insights, and as far as the map based question was concerned, so this year also almost the 7 map locations were from the very much known, very much static portions of the syllabus. So those who have done all the static locations related to the mountains, rivers, passes, glaciers, industrial town, industrial regions, corridors, wildlife sanctuaries, national forest. So obviously they will not have the much problem in the 6-7 locations like Mahe, very popular. Then you will have the Bombdila, then Dhola Sadia Bridge, then Dholavira, then Sonmarg, then Maliku Atoll, Ganga Sagar. So almost 6-7 locations were from the very known areas. There was 1 or 2 locations that were quite obscure, but as I used to say in different time that it will be obscure for all the geography optional students, so you need not to worry. तो अगर आपने 7-8 लोकेशन किया है तो that will be good, and those who are going to write or those who are still aspiring to write the mains examination, तो आपको भी you just need to keep in mind कि map based question के लिए you need to first have a command of the static locations. तो जो लोकेशन आपकी NCERT में दी गई है, the locations that is primarily given in your standard books, so whatever the location you are coming across, first try to have a hold on that. In the first stance itself, do not just rush behind some of the current based location, because the current based location is important, you need to prepare that, but before that पहले आप जो static location है, जो geographical locations हैं जो आपकी books में दी गई हैं, conventional books में NCERT में दिया गया, पहले उस पे you need to have a good command over that. Alright, now we'll look out the quickly some of the questions that have been asked. The first question, part of first question number 1A, that is map based, then question number 1B. Why has extreme particulate pollution remained a festering issues in the Delhi NCR? So it is from the contemporary issues. Delhi is facing a huge problem. This Delhi NCR is facing huge problem of pollution, specifically smog. So this smog issue crops up in Delhi NCR, and in last 4-5 years it is almost affecting the people of this region in every winter season. So why this is occurring only in the winter season, and what are the some of the dynamics? So that is how, that is what you are supposed to write. So you need to give a brief idea about the smog condition, you need to give idea about the smog problem in Delhi during the winter season, and then you need to give some of the causes. So causes, the geographical causes as well as man-made causes. So whenever you will write about the particulate pollution, you are not just supposed to write the man-made causes, you are also supposed to write the geographical causes, because if you will look out the smog problem, तो आप देखेंगे कि स्मॉग प्रॉब्लम इज ओनली अकरिंग इन केस ऑफ विंटर सीजन. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि समर सीजन में पोल्यूटेंट्स आर नॉट देयर, बट इन केस ऑफ समर सीजन द ज्योग्राफिकल conditions are favorable, which is dispersing these particulate matter. Coming to the particulate matter, you need to highlight that which particulate matter is problematic. So primarily it's a PM10 and PM2.5. So being a geography student, you need to have clarity that as far as particulate matter, when this particulate matter is present at the higher level and specifically of considerable size, so that is very useful because it acts like a hygroscopic nuclei. But when this particulate matter and of very finer size, a very small size, if it is present on the lower side of the atmosphere, on the lower level of the atmosphere, so when we breathe the air, it is capable of, particularly we are capable of inhaling those particulate matter, and that is why it's very much problematic. And one very important thing that you need to highlight in this problem of pollution is the stable condition. So stable condition, the air will becomes stable. So whatever in the air is present, it will be present in the nearby the ground. So you also need to highlight, you also need to give briefly about the temperature inversion situation which arises, which happens during the winter season. Along with that, of course, you are supposed to write some of the causes like stubble burning, so that can also be highlighted. Moving to the next question, that is, how do physiography and climate of India explain the biological diversity of the country? So again, it is checking your the physiographic knowledge, but basically this is also the question which is from the contemporary issues, but I have not counted this question as a part of the contemporary issues, because if it will be counted, so आपका जो 65 है, that will become 75. Anyway, how do physiography and climate? So in case of physiography, you need to have that India is having majorly the different physiographic region like northern mountainous area, the your northern plain area, then you will have the peninsular plateau, then you will have the coastal area, then island. So physiography and climate. So we have the different climatic condition based on the land. So we have the tropical and subtropical, but we also have the mountainous area, and in mountainous area, if you will start moving out, so based on the height we have the changing of the climate. So we have the tropical climate, we have the subtropical climate, we have the temperate climate, even we have the alpine climate also. So when it comes to the biodiversity, because the biodiversity is a comprehensive term, so in this biological diversity or biodiversity, you need to write both the diversity of plant and animal. So as far as plant is concerned, in India we have the different vegetation. We have the evergreen forest, we have the dry deciduous forest, we have the moist deciduous forest, we have the thorny forest, we have the alpine forest. So we have different vegetation is present that you are supposed to write. Then it comes to your animal diversity. So the different animals that are present in different part of the country, be it your northeastern region, be it your Himalayan Thar is there, be it your particularly snow leopard is there. So different animals that are present in different part, you need to briefly write. So basically the distribution is based on the physiography and climate. So this is how you need to justify, this is how you need to relate, this is how you need to give the distribution of plants and animals within the backdrop of physiography and climate. Physiography and climate plays very dominant role. You can say it is one of the most controlling factors. It is one of the most controlling factor. This in some of the area you will find, like in Western Ghat, you will find the some of the variety of reptiles are there. Then in particularly in northern plain area, specifically in the river area, we have the Ganges, dolphins are there. So that is basically associated with the climatic condition. Coming to the next question, the process of desertification leads to soil desiccation and soil loss. Explain. Now, this desertification is one of the topic on which almost in last few years continuously questions are being asked. And as far as desertification is concerned, earlier desertification was referring to the increase in the size of desert. So earlier time period, the meaning of desertification was only limited to the increasing size of the desert. Means if you will have the Thar desert, and around the Thar desert, if more and more desert is transforming or including, so that is your desertification. But in last few years, the meaning of desertification has changed. Now any area, specifically the fertile area, so any fertile area, when it is turning to infertile, so transformation of fertile area into infertile is simply your desertification. The biggest, or you can say the largest desertification on this planet is supposed to be ongoing on the northern plain. Northern plain happens to be one of the most fertile land, one of the most fertile region of the world, but the kind of agricultural activity we are practicing, specifically the rice cultivation and the sugarcane cultivation. So the rice and sugarcane cultivation based on the groundwater is not very much suitable, because over the period of time we are using more and more groundwater and recharge is not happening. So the groundwater depletion is happening, and ultimately there will be a dry soil, will get dry and it will loses the fertility. Other problems are also there, but primarily it is the drying condition of the soil and the loss of the fertility which is the main cause of the desertification. So the process of desertification, so in this write the mostly you have to write within the backdrop of the desertification that is happening in the northern plain. So in a way you can say the entire three question is out of 3 questions, 2 questions is from the contemporary issues. Moving to the next question, question number 2A. So, critically examine the factors affecting the unpredictability of southwest monsoon system in India. Now, the question is of 20 marker. So, in 20 marker, it is very important to write the introduction, the body, the conclusion. Now, the question is simply asking about unpredictability of southwest monsoon. So, it is asking about the southwest monsoon unpredictability. It is not asking about the monsoon. So, in introduction, it is best way to start, just give a brief idea about the monsoon and make sure when you will write the monsoon that it is the seasonal reversal of the wind. So, it is important that you should write within the backdrop of southwesterly. So, you have to write in the backdrop of southwesterly. Now, it is asking that why it is unpredictable. So, when you will write the unpredictable, first of all you need to tell the features. So, you need to tell that monsoon is a phenomena which is simply considered as the resultant of differential heating, but this monsoon is being affected by so many phenomena. So, Indian monsoon is getting affected by the phenomena of jet stream. So, movement of jet stream is affecting specifically the subtropical westerly jet stream. Then we have the tropical easterly jet stream. Also, we have a phenomena of Indian Ocean dipole. We have phenomena of El Nino. So, because Indian monsoon is based on the different phenomena, and these phenomena itself are very much unpredictable. So, they have anomalous behavior. Because these have the anomalous behavior, so obviously the monsoon will also behave anomalously. So, this is how you need to justify that, because Indian monsoon is not simply based on the differential heating of Indian Ocean and the Indian mainland, it is also being affected by so many other phenomena. So, all these phenomena you are supposed to write. As far as conclusion is concerned, in conclusion, the best you can say are the most important consequence of this unpredictability of monsoon is associated with the agriculture. So, you can write that in India, in most of the season we face fluctuation in the food items, fluctuation in the vegetables. So, those fluctuation in the prices of vegetable food items is primarily associated with the unreliable monsoon, and unreliable monsoon is basically associated with the unpredictability of the monsoon. This is how you can write the conclusion also. Moving to the next question. So, the next question says the peninsular location of India provides scope for harnessing non-conventional energy resources. Discuss with example. So, again the question is a region based. So, please understand that whenever the question is based on the region based, like the main theme of the question is non-conventional energy resources. So, first of all you need to write that what is the non-conventional energy sources. So, in non-conventional energy sources we have the solar energy, we have the wind energy, we have the biogas energy, we have the tidal energy, geothermal energy. So, all these are the non-conventional energy sources. In case of non-conventional energy sources, you are not supposed to write within the backdrop of solar energy. You have to write within the backdrop of peninsular India. तो क्वेश्चन जो पूछा गया that is has been asked within the backdrop of peninsular India, तो आपका आंसर भी peninsular India के बेसिस पे होना चाहिए. So the basically the point is जब आप आंसर लिखेंगे in that time you need to have the whole physiography in your mind. तो आप when you will write the your answer, so in your answer should resemble that yes, you are looking out the eastern ghat, you are looking out the western ghat, you are looking out the central highland. So it should be there. You are including the eastern coastal plain, you are including the western coastal plain, then only your answer will be a, you can say, the regional perspective will be there. So as far as peninsula is concerned, peninsula is having huge scope, specifically in the coastal area. Wind energy potential is huge. We have a long coastline, almost 6100 kilometer long coastline in case of mainland, and if you will include the island also, so it will be roughly around 7500 kilometer long coastline. So हमारे पास कोस्टल एरिया में विंड एनर्जी का पोटेंशियल बहुत ज़्यादा है, सो यू नीड टू हाईलाइट दैट. देन टाइडल एनर्जी, so tidal energy is also being harnessed, so tidal energy, so wind and tidal energy should be focused in case of coastal area. As far as the interior part of the plateau is concerned, in case of interior part of the plateau, the dryness is there, also you will have a very high temperature is throughout the year it is maintained. So we have a huge potential of solar energy. So solar energy should be promoted in case of interior part of the plateau and also the mountainous area. So be it your western ghat, be it your eastern ghat, so in these areas the solar energy is more potential for the harnessing. So you should not just write that this are all these energy, rather you also need to highlight that why. One more thing, solar energy, when you will write, you also need to write, in case of solar energy, for harnessing the solar energy you need some land. So sizable amount of land needs to be for placing the solar panel, so it needs to be diverted. So in the area like in case of northern plain, so in northern plain we have a huge potential of the solar energy. लेकिन अगर आप देखेंगे Indo-Gangetic plain is mainly utilized for the agricultural activity. तो यहाँ पे आपकी agricultural activity is the most dominant activity. तो अगर आप agricultural activity which is one of the most fertile land, तो यहाँ पे अगर आप solar panel के लिए ज़्यादा promote करेंगे in over the farm area, so it is not that much profitable because ultimately there will be some of the loss of the land. Yes, over the rural area, so on house tops or in some of the industrial region, it is quite you can say possible, it's a quite viable, but in case of mainland it is not less viable, or you can say less profitable, whereas in case of peninsula mostly it is very much viable because the kind of agricultural activity that is being performed, so in that agricultural activity mostly be it your cotton cultivation, so cotton cultivation is there. Then even in case of ghat area, specifically the tea and coffee cultivation, those are shade loving plants, so those are shade loving plants, so definitely you can put up the solar panel. So that is how you need to write. Moving to the next question. Groundwater contamination in the fast expanding urban landscape of India appears to have become a major public health issue. Discuss. So the question is about the groundwater pollution, groundwater contamination. So groundwater contamination, so it should not be written in general, it should be written within the perspective of urban. So in urban area groundwater contamination. In urban area, what are the main reason of the groundwater contamination? So we have the waste disposal. Waste disposal is one very important aspect. Then you will have the pollution caused by the air pollution. Then you will have a medical waste is being disposed of. So medical waste is being disposed of, that is one of the reason. Then you will have the sewage is there. So drainage, sewage, medical waste, so electronic waste. So all these are the reason of groundwater contamination in case of urban area. That is how you need to write, and then you need to relate it with some of the health problem, like the children are almost getting affected by the cholera, diarrhea, then you will have the fever, typhoid. So all these are the one of the biggest challenge, and specifically the poor people in the urban area, the people living in the slum area, they are more prone to the effect of the groundwater contamination. So this is how you need to approach this question. Moving to the next question, question number 3. A. Discuss the recent changes brought about in institutional framework of agriculture in India. Evaluate its impact on the agrarian economy of the country. Now, as far as institutional factor is concerned, this institutional factor is primarily associated with the land reform, is primarily associated with the land rights, land tenure. So, this is associated with the land. Over the period of time, land reforms have been initiated, and initially it has given the good result, but over the period of time the land fragmentation has led to the present situation. Like in India, around 67% farmers are the marginal farmer. Marginal farmers are the farmers whose land holding is less than 1 hectare, and 18% farmers are the small farmer. So almost you can say 85% of the farmers are those farmers whose land holding is less than 2 hectares. So 85% of the farmers' land holding is less than 2 hectares. Within the backdrop of this, lots of schemes, lots of programs have been launched. These are the farmers who happens to be most prone in case of any eventuality like the failure of the crop. So the crop insurance schemes have been initiated from time to time, and later on almost all the crop insurance schemes have been subsumed in the form of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. It has given a very good result. Then also, other than this, government has started a direct income transfer program, and Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Yojana. So under that, government is providing 6,000 rupees, and this 6,000 rupees will be provided to the farmers, the whole family, annually in 3 different installments. Other than this, the a pension scheme has also been launched by the government, and the pension scheme has also been launched in the particularly by the government. So all these schemes are for the, you can say, benefit of this farming community, so that those farmers who are not capable of having the even some of the other decisions have been taken, like giving the credit facility, giving the seeds and all those subsidy in case of fertilizer subsidy, in case of seed subsidy, in case of water subsidy, electricity at the subsidized rate. So from the input side, government is giving lots of facility, and from the output side also the government is giving lots of facility, like once the crop is being produced, and if there will be a huge fluctuation in the rate, so ultimately the farmer will be the sufferer. So to help the farmer, we have a concept of MSP. So MSP is giving us some form of the stability to the farmer. So all these is the initiative by the government, and obviously it has given a good result, because now farmer is having some money to invest in the agriculture, and because of that the agriculture produce have increased. Over the period of time, the farmer is also able to send their children to the schools, so the education level is increasing throughout the country. That is the resultant. Then the government is not only relying on that, government is also having some other initiatives which is helping the farmer, like soil health card. So to assess the fertility of the soil, the government is coming out. So all these things you can write in this question. Moving to the next question. Discuss the continuing disputes on water sharing between the riparian state of northwest India. So again, this question is primarily of political aspect. So from the political aspect, the question has been asked. So we have lots of river dispute, because if you will prepare the rivers, you will find most of the rivers are originating either in Himalayan region or the peninsular region. So in peninsular region also most of the rivers are originating in the Western Ghat. So after originating, these rivers are flowing to Bay of Bengal or the Arabian Sea, and in before reaching to the Bay of Bengal or Arabian Sea, these rivers crosses many states. So they crosses many states, and over the period of time, with increasing population, the demand of water have increased. Also the agricultural activity is more prominent, so more requirement of the water from the agricultural activity. There has been a long term change in the rainfall pattern also, specifically within the backdrop of climate change. So all these have you can say aggravated this issue of water dispute. The very famous dispute, that is Kaveri river dispute, you must be knowing, but the question is not asking about the Kaveri dispute. Question is basically asking the dispute that is prevalent in the northern and northwestern India. So the classical example is your Narmada dispute. So the Narmada river dispute between the Gujarat and particularly MP, that can be written. Then we will have the very famous Tapi dispute, the Tapi river dispute between the Gujarat and Maharashtra. In fact, this Tapi river dispute is capable, it is having potential to derail one of the very prominent the interlinking of river projects. So we have the Par Tapi and the Daman Ganga interlinkage project. Then also you will have a Ravi and Vyas river. So Ravi and Vyas river dispute is between the Punjab, between the Haryana. Then you will have the Rajasthan is also one of the party. So even Satluj Yamuna dispute is there. So all these disputes you are supposed to write. Moving to the next question. Soils of India are clear reflections of the structure and process. Comment. So question is basically asked from the soil, but it is going to check your idea of landform development. So question will check like the very famous, you must be knowing the idea of the Davis, the trio of Davis, that landform is the resultant and landform is the function of structure, process and stages. So in this question, whenever you will write the soils, so we have different type of soil, we have black soil, we have red soil, we have laterite soil, we have alluvial soil, we have forest soil. So all these soil, when you will write, you will give the due consideration for the structure. So black soil is being formed through the weathering and disintegration of the lava rocks. Red soil is being formed through the weathering and disintegration of granite and gneiss. Alluvial soil is nothing but it is the resultant of deposition of the sediments. So sediment has been brought by the particularly rivers. So in this way you need to write, in this way you need to write this particularly question. Moving to the next question. India is bestowed with rich mineral resources due to its geological structure. So again, in the previous question they have checked your structure and process related to the soil. Now they are going to check your geological process, like the geological history of India. We have the different geological history. We have the Archean rock, we have the Dharwad rock, we have the Dravidian rocks, we have the iron rocks. So all these rock systems knowledge will be checked in this question. Correlate the above statement with large mineral belts. So in India we have the few major mineral belts. So we have the Chota Nagpur Plateau region, one of the major mineral belt. Then we have the central India. Central India, we have the Chhattisgarh, we have the Jharkhand, we have the Maharashtra. So that is your central India. Then you will have the peninsular region. So in peninsular region, primarily the Tamil Nadu region, the Karnataka region. Then you will have the southwestern peninsula. So primarily you will have the Karnataka, Goa region. So you need to write, you need to draw the map and you need to write the major mineral belts. Before that, you need to write that why most of the metallic minerals are limited to the peninsular India. Then you will have the fossiliferous minerals, or petroleum is limited to the continental shelf part, or you can say northern part of the Himalayan region. Then the presence of the coal is primarily present in most of the river valleys. So this is how you need to write, this is how you need to link the distribution of the mineral and also the structure, that how the landform has been formed. Moving to the next question, discuss the importance of dry land farming in the drought prone regions of India. So here there are two very important pointers that you need to highlight: dry regions and drought prone regions. Dry regions, or you can say the dry land farming, is primarily the farming which is primarily based on the rain fed. So this is a kind of agriculture which only depends on the rainfall. Here the irrigation facility is not there. The second most important point, that here the rainfall is less than, the annual rainfall will be less than 75 centimeter. So the agricultural activity that is being performed within the rain fed condition and the annual amount of rainfall is less than 75 centimeters. So that is your dry land farming. Coming to the drought prone region, in fact in India, barring the western side of the Western Ghat, almost the entire country and some part of northeastern India, entire country is prone to the drought. So the drought is not only limited to the dry area. This is one thing that you need to know. Drought is not only limited to the dry area. In fact, if you will look out the variability of rainfall, so when you will look out the variability of rainfall, you will find the variability of rainfall is obviously is more in case of the area that are receiving the less rainfall. So in case of Vidarbha region, in case of Marathwada, Rayalaseema, Telangana, or the Kutch region of Gujarat, or the western part of the Rajasthan, or the southwestern part of Punjab, southern Haryana, these areas the chances of drought is more. But also we have the remaining part of the country like UP, Bihar, MP, the remaining part of Gujarat, the Punjab. Here also we have the proneness of the drought. So drought prone area are almost, you can say, the most part of the country is drought prone. But in that drought prone area, specifically the more drier area, the dry land farming is more important because it promotes the most of the oil seed is being cultivated in this region, most of the pulses are being cultivated in this region, most of the millets are being cultivated in these areas. And in these areas we have a huge potential, of forestry. We can go for the, most of the farmers are practicing the mixed farming. So they are doing the cultivation of the crop and also they are doing the particularly rearing of animal. So milk, animal husbandry is being done. So all these things you need to highlight. Moving to the next question, question number 4C. Incidents of extreme rainfall events and flash floods in recent times have led to devastating consequences for people living in low-lying areas and flood plains of the country discussed. So again the question is from the contemporary issues. So incidents of extreme rainfall events and the flash flood. So extreme rainfall and flash flood is nothing but the flood, but you need to write within the backdrop of some examples. So it can be your Hyderabad flood, it can be your Kerala flood, it can be your Assam flood, it can be your Bihar flood, it can be your Maharashtra flood. So when you will write the answer, in introduction you can directly start by giving the some of the recent examples of the flood. So do not restrict yourself to just write what is flood. Within the introduction itself you can write about the different instances, different examples of the flood. After that in main body you can write that yes, flood is affecting the irrespective of place, area, location, flood is going to affect both in terms of loss of life, loss of property, but the effect of flood will be more in case of the people living in the low-lying area. So the people living in the low-lying area of Brahmaputra, the people living in low-lying area of the Hooghly, Ganga, they will definitely get more affected by the flood. Rivers like Damodar, rivers like Kosi. So in these area, the low-lying area, people are more affected. Then in hilly area, so specifically the people living in the low-lying area for plain area for Assam, they are more prone to the flood from the Arunachal. Similar to that, in case of Western Ghat region, the people living in the lower side, they are more prone to the flood. So this is how you need to flow this particular question. Moving to the next question, question number 5. So we have a 5A. Discuss the impact of Forest Rights Act 2006 on the local forest communities in India. So the question is primarily related to the resources. So forest as a resources. As far as Forest Right Act is concerned, the Forest Right Act primarily deals with the people that are considered as forest dwellers, primarily the tribal population. Over the period of time, we will find the tribals are the people living in the forest area. Those were mostly the people that were depending on the forest produce. But right from the British time period and even after the once we got the freedom, there has been some form of the alienation to those people. So this is also one of the reason of the mistrust, or you can say the tribal conflict, because the tribals are the people living in the forest area, they mostly depends on the forest, and once the Forest Act has been enacted, so in all the Forest Act they have been alienated from their land, because they were not doing the conventional agricultural activity or they were not having the land. So in a way you can say हमने उनको उन्हीं की land से अलग कर दिया, and that was the very big mistake. The mistake has been rectified in the 2006. So the basic idea was that the people living in the forest area and practicing the most of the activity associated with the forest land related to the trees, specifically collecting some of the food items, some of the flowers and all those things, they have given some of the rights. So it was very important decision, and under this those people, the forest dwellers, have been given the land titles, and the responsibility has been given to the panchayat. So panchayats will decide based on the some land titles, based on the some land records, revenue, the record that is with the revenue department, and even now the people are entitled to go for some of the collection of the forest produce. So the minor forest produce they can utilize, and they can even the utilize for the commercial purposes, like in case of the central India, especially the Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, lots of people have started collecting the tendu leaves, and they have started selling, which is highly useful in some of the industrial activity. So definitely it has good impact. It has provided some livelihood to the people living in the forest area, and they have some land, and on those land they can go for the cultivation. So ultimately it has uplifted the rural areas living in the forest region. Now on the similar lines, one more question has been asked, question number 5B. Can the Panchayat Raj institution play a role in grassroots level planning in India? If yes, discuss how. So in fact, what they are asking, it was the main objective of the Panchayati Raj institution. So yes, it plays very important role in the grassroots democracy, and it plays very important role in the planning. So at the grassroots level, at the local level, in economic planning, in socio-economic conditions, social issues, it is being played by this Panchayati Raj institution. In fact, you will find the rural roads is being constructed, the school being managed, then you will have schooling facilities, some of the Anganwadi facilities, healthcare facilities. So we have a lot of provision. In fact, the rural area, over the period of time, people became more confident. Now they have started understanding their rights, particularly different rights related to the fundamental rights and all those in the rural area. So it has given a good result. But now whenever you will write, you also supposed to write the challenges. So one of the biggest challenge in this fulfilling the objective is the fund. So funding is very important challenge, because yes, they can go for the planning, panchayat can go for the planning, but ultimately they depends state government on the funding. So from the objectives of the Panchayati Raj institution, obviously it appears to be a separate entity, but over the period of time, if you will look out the resources they have, so they have very less resources at their disposal. That is why they are more or less, you can say, subordinate. It appears to be they are subordinate to the state government. So this is how you can write. Moving to the next question. Discuss the significance of new ports on the western coast of India on the external trade of the country. So question is within the backdrop of trade, transport and communication. In India, we have some of the major ports, we have some of the minor ports. So roughly six major ports are there in the western India and western coast. And out of that six, the most developed, or you can say the highest capacity port, the most busiest port of India, that is JNPT port, is also on the western coast, Jawaharlal Nehru port. So we have a large number of ports are there, and ports have very important role, because in India 90% of our trade, 90% of our trade by volume and 70% of our trade with the value is primarily through the port. So port have very important role in case of external trade, but over the period of time it has been felt that ports are not utilized to its fullest capacity, and there has been lots of problems, there has been lots of challenges. So to modernize the port, we have a different initiative, but that has not worked well. And then we have oncoming of Sagarmala project. Now the Sagarmala project have certain new, you can say, provisions, and the provision is not to just modernize the port, it also helps in improving the port hinterland connectivity. So in improving the port hinterland connectivity, so like one example you can give, and it's very good, your western dedicated freight corridor. So western dedicated freight corridor that has been started, that has been constructed between the JNPT in Mumbai to Dadri in UP. So this JNPT to Dadri, now what will happen, once the cargo will come, definitely it can be directly sent to the different part of the Rajasthan, your MP, your Gujarat, your Haryana, your UP, Delhi, via this particularly dedicated freight corridor. So the port hinterland connectivity is one very important component to strengthen. Other than this, there is a provision of greenfield port. So greenfield industrial towns in the port area. So it is not that only the port hinterland connectivity needs to be improved, लेकिन बहुत सारे ports में there are lots of items that are being imported. So the items are basically imported, and most of the items are being utilized in industry are imported. So if industry is primarily based on the imported goods, so why to set up the industry in Delhi? Why to set up the industry in Jaipur? Why not to set up nearby the Kandla port? Why not to set up the nearby the Visakhapatnam port? So that is also one of the provision. So this is how you can write, and in fact obviously you can give the example, like in India, if you will look out the western India, so in western India, obviously the states like Maharashtra, states like Gujarat, they are more developed. So the reason behind development is, one very important reason behind their development is the more modernized, or you can say more effect of the port. So port has definitely helped these regions. Moving to the next question, how decline in total fertility rate? Total fertility rate is simply the average number of children a woman is supposed to have in their fecundity period. So the average number of women is supposed to have in their childbearing age, which is generally 15 to 49. So within this age, the average number of children. If this number is less than 2.1, so 2.1 is considered as replacement level. So if it is less than 2.1, so that is referred as below replacement level. So in many states of India affect the future population structure of the country. It has been reported, so it was mostly in the news before the mains examination last year. So lots of state in India, like you will have the lots of northeastern state have very low level of total fertility rate. So total fertility rate like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So lots of state, barring just states like UP, Bihar, some of the fast growing, fast population growth state, most of the state population growth is less than below replacement level. Now, in the first hand it appears, because in India is in November month, India has become the highest populous country on this planet. So within this backdrop, it appears that in India population is very much high. Our population is growing very rapidly, and within that backdrop, if you will look out this lots of states total fertility rate is below replacement level. तो एक ऐसा appearance होता है that our population is going to decrease. Yes, once the population is below the replacement level, so obviously there is a chances that in future the overall population will decline. And once the overall population will decline, there will be problem of aging population, aged population, like what is being witnessed by the country like Japan, country like most of the Scandinavian country. They are in fact incentivizing their population to have more number of babies, but the people are not very much induced to have more number of babies. Or the experience of the China, that is a very good example. But you need to understand one very important thing, कि yes, total fertility rate अगर below replacement level के नीचे है, so there is a chances, there is a scope, but ultimately what happens, population momentum is more important. So in India we have the population momentum, and because we have the population momentum, so there is no need to worry. As of now, the population is continuously rising. So here you can say that it's not that much problematic, it's not that much alarming in India to have a very low level of replacement, because still biggest state, the largest contributor are still having the high total fertility rate. Then one more question which can be, you can say it is a contemporary issues related question, but yes, it is from political aspect. Kalapani dispute has opened a new front on the India-Nepal international border. Explain. So Kalapani, Limpia Dhura, even in this was given in, I have included in my map also. So Kalapani, Limpia Dhura, Lipu Lake. So Nepal has come out with the new map and showing that these are their territory. This dispute is not that much highlighted earlier, but yes, it's an old dispute. Nepal considered that these are part of the Nepal. India considered that these are part of the India, specifically in the Uttarakhand. So within the Uttarakhand state, Pithoragarh district, it considered. It is basically, the dispute is of origin of Kali river. So Nepal considers that these places lies east of the Kali river which is considered as the demarcating a border, natural border between India and Nepal. So yes, it will already fragile this condition, and you can write like India is having a not a good relation with the China, be it your Doklam issue, be it your Galwan issue. So within that backdrop, India cannot afford to have a more friction with the countries like Nepal and Tibet, Nepal and your Bhutan. So you need to write in that front. As far as this dispute is not very severe, this dispute is not big, but you need to write that India cannot afford to have this India-Nepal dispute at the present circumstance. Then we have questions of question number 6a. Why do disparities in development and incomes between regions persist in large countries like India? How does the recent ADP plan address the issues? So primarily the question is about the regional inequalities. So in introduction you need to write about the regional inequalities. You need to write that regional inequalities happens at the national level, at the state level, at the district level. Regional inequalities being caused due to the geographical condition, due to the natural condition. So geographical, man-made you need to write. Then you have to write the ADP. ADP is your aspirational district program that has been launched in 2018, and in fact the idea was that some districts will be identified which are more having less development. तो ऐसे डिस्ट्रिक्ट को आइडेंटिफाई किया गया था जो लेस डेवलपमेंट हो, स्पेसिफिकली विद इन द with respect to the socio-economic development. So later on the government, specifically the Prime Minister, have shown some desire that this aspirational district program needs to be implemented more intensified manner, and in other districts also it needs to be implemented. So within that perspective you have to write. Then we have a question of critically examine the role of IRNSS. So IRNSS, your Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, and this Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System is a, you can say more or less on the lines of global positioning system like other GPS enabled location system, and it is the initiative of ISRO, and it runs a satellite program that is NAVIC, NAVIC. NAVIC is nothing but the navigation with Indian constellation. So NAVIC is NAVIC with Indian constellation. So it is a simply constellation of around 8 satellite. So the basic idea is to improving our locational analysis based on the satellite. So location precision based on the satellite system. Every country, most of the countries in the present time period, they have their own locationing system based on the satellite navigating system. So India will have also its own satellite system. It is having provision of both. It will be have some specialized use, which is referred as restricted use. Restricted use will be only for the defense, and then you will have the regular use. So regular use can be for the entire country, or you can say at the commercial level also. Alright, moving to the next question. Examine the role of high population concentration in Indian slums in making them more vulnerable during pandemic conditions like the COVID-19. So primarily the question is within the backdrop of high population density. So in most of the urban area the population density is very high, and within the urban area throughout the country you will find that some of the urban sprawl or some of the slum areas are there. So slum areas are simply the areas where the land prices, the land rate is comparatively cheaper. So the land is comparatively cheaper, so it is being afforded by the almost poor people also. But here you will not have the good facility of sanitation, the water, the drainage, the drinking water, the electricity, the roads. So everything is not that much good. And so that is your slum. Like you will have the biggest slum in case of Mumbai, Dharavi. So when the situation like COVID that has arisen, in case of COVID the maintaining the distance was very important, hygiene was very important. But how is it possible when in a room 20 people is living, when a washroom toilet that is being shared by 40 people, 50 people. So practically it is almost impossible to maintain the hygiene. Practically it is impossible to maintain the social distancing, and if it is impossible means the epidemics, the situation like COVID is uncontrollable in case of the your slum area. And in fact the healthcare people and the people that are supposed to provide the facilities, they will also not be interested in going that area. So it was a very challenging situation. We need to tackle this problem within the backdrop of COVID, that in future might be the COVID like situation can arise again, because still even till present time COVID has not gone, so still COVID is there, but definitely the effect have considerably less now, and now it is being considered as one of the other like diseases. But anyway, in future the situation can arise, so you have to write in that manner. You need to write that the slum is something which is not fixed. Almost in every city new slums are developing, so uska bhi tackle karna hai. Moving to next question, discuss the salient characteristic of industrial complexes of Western India, examine the impact of SEZ policy. So it is again one repeating question. Last year they have asked about the industrial corridor, now they have asked the industrial complexes. So industrial complexes simply is like where roadways are there, railways connectivity is there, uninterrupted power supply, uninterrupted water supply, everything is there. So in that particular area the industrial activity is very well developed. You can give the example of Bangalore, you can give the example of Hyderabad, Madurai, Chennai, so all these things. SEZ, basically SEZ have been initiated for the export purpose, so government is kind of giving a rebate, tax rebate and other benefits in the form of for doing the specific services, that is export. Moving to next question, discuss the emergence of linguistic regions and states in India. So as far as discuss the emergence of linguistic regions, so primarily it is your question of political aspect and also cultural setting. So you have to give the idea of state reorganization after the partition, because even before the independence we were having this demand of creation of the region, states based on the linguistic, but that has not been accepted. But after the independence lots of protest and even one of the famous protest has been done, and in resultant of that the first linguistic state, that is your Andhra Pradesh, have been set up, and after that we have so many linguistic states that has been set up in India. So state reorganization within the backdrop of linguistic regions you can write. Moving to the next question, what are the drivers of urban sprawl around the major cities of the country? How have new investment in transport projects supported sprawl development? So again, as I said, urban sprawl is nothing but it is a haphazard urbanization in the neighboring rural area. So haphazard urbanization in a transition area. So the feature wise, the characteristic wise, this will appear to be a more or less urban area. But from the land revenue, from the administration perspective, that will be mostly the rural area. So still you will find the panchayat is there, still you will find the panchayat is controlling all the land and all those. But most of the people that are living in those area happens to be the city people. Agricultural activity is not being done, primarily it is the industrial activity, or at best if they are doing the agriculture, so mostly your vegetable, fruits and all those things are being done. So within that backdrop you need to write, and also you need to write that over the period of time, because more and more people are migrating to the urban area, so the demand for low housing is very high. Urban area the prices are very high, so people are not able to afford that. In fact, on top of it, some of the modern transport system, जैसे आप you can give the example, a best example in most part of the country we have the metro. So metro के होने की वजह से almost let's say in Delhi, people now can travel 70-80 kilometer. So 70-80 kilometer people are commuting, and also at very less price. So बहुत कम पैसे में travel कर रहे हैं. Not only in Delhi, different part of the country we have the metro system. So it has almost promoted the urban sprawl. Moving to the one more question. Question number 8A. How do agroclimatic and land capability indicators assist in macro agricultural regionalization of India? So macro level, India is being considered as the food grain dominant country, food grain dominant region. Then we will have the millet dominant region. Then we will have the plantation vegetation. So at the macro level, this division is basically associated with the physiography, division is basically associated with the climate. like in most part of the northern India, the climate is suitable for the cultivation of rice, wheat, sugarcane. In case of western Ghat region, the soil and the climate is suitable for plantation. In northeastern India is also for that. In case of peninsula, it is more suitable for the cultivation of the dry crops, millets crop. So this is how you need to write. Map also needs to be drawn. Moving to the second last question, discuss the geopolitical significance of Quad. So Quad is the grouping of 4 countries, which is also sometimes referred as quadrilateral security dialogue. So we have Japan, we have Australia, we have India, and we have USA. The basic idea in general is to maintain more peace, prosperity, economic cooperation in this region, that is Indo-Pacific. But yes, one thing is very clear, that the basic objective is to contain the China. Basic objective is to minimize the growing influence of the China in this region. So within that backdrop, it's very good from the Indian perspective. So it is very good from the Indian perspective. There can be more potential, more chances of the growing trade between the India and these Quad countries, and over the period of time, the region will be more, you can say, we will able to minimize the control of the China in this region. So this is how you can write. Last question is, evaluate the role of National Food Security Act 2013 in providing access of food to the poor in India. So the question is basically asked from the food security perspective, that is contemporary issues. So you can give the some timeline, like how the food security has been made as a constitutional, as a based on the statutory act, and you can write that now it is mandated to cover some of the people that are below poverty line, to have them the rice, wheat and other food grain. So the idea was basically to have access to food to all the people of this country, irrespective whether they are having the land or not. And in fact, you need to write this, that this food security has been more became handy during the COVID, because this food security has been extended to almost all the rural population, and everyone was entitled to have a rice, wheat, later on some of the pulses, sugar, salt. And in the time of COVID, when most people have lost their job, there was no economic activity in that time period, this food security was something which has helped the rural population, or you can say the urban poor, to survive in that difficult time period. So this is how you can write this question. So that's it. So briefly I have just given you the outline, that how you are supposed to approach this paper number 2, and paper 2 in geography optional paper 2, your approach should be more and more regional. So this is how you can tackle this question paper. I am sure that this session must be very helpful for all those who are aspiring to write the examination with the geography optional, because it will give you an idea कि क्वेश्चन में जो जेनरिक क्वेश्चन है, उन जेनरिक क्वेश्चन में what are supposed to be written, how to make this generic question more geographical. So that's it from my side. Thank you.